Right now on Tech Radio, show me the money.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and across the world. This week, what is this tech bro problem where the more money they make, the less they're worth? Plus, we chat about transparency in AI content with our guest, Ashley Casovan from IAPP.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. Niall, we're back to the money. It's like that. That's what tech is. It's cash now, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's results season. We always like results season. It's sort of because the trend is it's very predictable. It's always, if you're a hardware company, you've had a reasonable time. If you're a services company, you've had a good time. And that's kind of how it has been the last few years.
But speaking of a trend, the trend that we're now seeing is the more the revenue goes up, the shares are going down. All right. So I'm not going to get bogged down with numbers, but let me just give you the overview of what we're talking about. Okay. Netflix, their revenue is up like 13%, but their shares are down. Spotify, their revenue is up 14%. Their shares are down as well. SpaceX, their revenue has doubled. They're still running at a loss, but the shares are down. And then X and Twitter, their revenue is down. And so are their shares, and so is their boss, to be honest. But anyways, Netflix, Spotify, SpaceX, what they have in common, and this is weird when it comes to the markets, right? The markets don't care about now, all right? Oh, your revenue is great for now. What they're looking for is growth. And that's the big problem I think we have with all of these tech companies is they are now so big. Is there anywhere they can grow?
Well, that's a very interesting problem. I mean, Spotify's big announcement as part of their results was that they had passed 300 million users, which is very impressive. SpaceX, their big announcement, I mean, it's not good news if you're a retail investor, which is what they're relying on. The share price, as we're talking, is down around $110. If you bought in on day one, you probably paid $150. The shares peaked at $200. So you're not going to be making money off SpaceX shares for a long, long time. Never mind the fact that, X / formerly known as Twitter, is a loss maker and is folded into SpaceX anyway. Because we talked about this. SpaceX is 3 businesses, one of which makes money, two that doesn't. And there's eternal speculation that Tesla will be folded into SpaceX as well. But I think the Netflix figure is particularly interesting because they are growing. I mean, as you said yourself, their revenue is up 13%, but they are having a problem with keeping people on the platform. Now, they are discovering that they can only raise prices for so much, right? Because their whole thing, and you remember the conversation when they came here, they were like, we're not looking to compete with HBO. We're looking to compete with Sky Atlantic, right? We want to make our own content. We want to be as good as that. That's the model we want. And that's what they did. But they discovered that we're making this sort of what we think is quality TV, but we are experiencing an awful lot of churn, right? So people will come up for a product and then they'll vanish. They'll be like, what's the issue here? And it was like, well, when you take 3 years between series, when you take one of your flagship shows like Stranger Things and put a 3-year gap between seasons, or in case the last season, a 3.5-year gap, what do you think people are going to do with the rest of that 2.5 years? You've dropped all the episodes at once. They're going to binge. They're going to realize that the rest of the catalog isn't that compelling, or they're going to find out that a show they're thinking of watching has already been cancelled, as happens far too often with Netflix. They'll drop an entire season, and if something doesn't instantly catch fire, it's going to be cancelled. And that's what happens time and time again. So as a result, they get a massive amount of churn on their platform. They've only recently copped this on. Now, I don't know how that will affect their strategy in future, whether it will be a case of, okay, this year is Bridgerton year. Next year is insert flavor of the month here.
Whatever. Yeah.
Whatever else people are watching on the platform.
I think I'm thinking back to whatever about the tech bros and who owns it and what they're doing and I'm just kind of going back to myself, right? And my experience of Netflix. And I mean, the revenue, the subscription price is going up. I mean, it's still not terrible, but like everything is a subscription now. That's the problem, right? It used to be a case of like Netflix and one other thing, where this is the only thing I subscribe to. Now I've got like 10 different subscriptions. Something's got to go somewhere along the line, like, you know?
Yeah.
But I find Netflix are trying to, it seems like they're trying desperately to add content. There's games. I keep looking at games on Netflix going, what the hell? Like, what the hell? Is this part of my subscription? Am I paying extra for this? They're trying to get podcasts rolled in as part of Netflix. It's like, why are you doing this? This is a movie platform. Kind of the TV shows is kind of like the add-on. Don't be adding on games. And Spotify are the same, right? The music platform, fantastic. And what they do is brilliant, right? Then all of a sudden, kind of, they're getting in on the podcasting game. And it's kind of like, whatever. And now they're in on audiobooks. Like, how do you equate David Bowie with Enid Blyton is the only author I can think of immediately. But do you know what I mean? They're two completely different things. Music, books. Why that drives me absolutely. And then it's it's happening a lot with the other companies like Microsoft and Google and stuff like that. They're all kind of going, and we've added AI features and they're amazing. And I'm kind of going, well, they're not really. And I never asked for them. And they go, yeah, and we're charging extra because of all these AI features. It's like, price is going up.
Yeah.
The value is not going up. And personally, I'm just like, I'm just waiting for Netflix to introduce ads. And as soon as they introduce ads, I'm gone.
That is part of the plan.
I know it is, yeah.
And you're dead right to be sort of off the train at that point because the catalog isn't strong enough.
No,
it's not strong enough.
You can tell. So Netflix and Amazon, we would watch quite a bit. All right. And both of them create a lot of their own content. You can just tell. I don't know. Have you found that? You can just, this is a cheap movie.
Yeah.
There's not as many actors in it. There's not quite as many outdoor scenes or whatever. That kind of way. The coloring even is all. I watched a Danish one last night. And I just knew straight away. And I looked it up on IMDb afterwards and went, yeah, Netflix made it in 19 days. And I went, yeah, looks like it.
Yeah. Well, this is part of the thing. Like when it comes to movies, like if something is an independent production and they have 10,000 euro to play with and they try the best they can, that's one thing. You give productions like that a lot of grace because you appreciate what they went through.
Yeah.
And if it's a 5, if it's a 5 out of 10 movie, it's fine. It'll while away the hours for you. If it's a large company cheaping out on something, I mean, that's disrespectful to your users. Like that is shockingly bad.
Yeah. And it's also back to, well, what is it that they do? Do you know what I mean? Like kind of Warner Brothers and MGM and all of these they make movies. That's what they've done.
Yeah.
Netflix has always distributed movies. Now they're in the business of making movies. It's the same in Europe. I certainly know in France, right? Who is it? I think Pathé, I think it's the cinema chain or something like that. And it's been like this for decades. I learned this in secondary school, right? Pathé own most of the cinemas in France, or did, all right? And because of that, they made a whole load of movies. And they were always cheap. You know what I mean? But they were trying to get bums on seats in the theater. Netflix is doing the same thing. Amazon's doing the same thing. They're just putting out... Now, some of it, it's too much. Let's see what I just find a lot of it is poor quality. Storylines, production quality. It's all professional. Don't get me wrong, but it's just not up there. It's like kind of when you watch a TV show and you watch a movie.
Yeah, it's charmless. Like if you look at the big movies this year, it's polar. Like you've got Spider-Man and The Odyssey at one end. Massive productions. In one sense, too big to fail, but in another, no, failure is very real. And on the other end, you had Backrooms and Obsession, tiny movies, that have made huge money. And, we often talk about the squeezed middle in life, but also in film production. We hear an awful lot about it because it means that there are much fewer roles for people to take on. And there's potentially a space there for quality productions to thrive. But the money that's being thrown into that space, they're not for productions that are meant to thrive. They're for content.
Anyway, listen,
content.
Let's move on. Needless to the last thing I was going to say on that is it's interesting to see that revenues are going up and share prices are not. All right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I'm drawing, as you can see, because I'm in front of you, but for listeners, I'm drawing like my hand is going like a roller coaster. And I think we're at the top and we're starting to go down. Maybe that's one of the signs. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. Anyway, other news, the other really big, now I was going to say the other really big story is that SpaceX crashed one of their rockets into the moon. That's kind of like almost a non-story because it's like, yeah, it crashed in. Well, part of it did. And well, nobody really saw it.
Did it really happen then?
Did it really happen? So let's go on to another really big story of the week. And this is another AI model has gone rogue. And this time it's Meta.
This is, Meta's Muse Spark 1.1 model. The exact same thing that happened with OpenAI, the exact same thing that happened with Anthropic. Do not let these things get internet connectivity. They will do stuff you don't want them to do.
Yeah. But hang on a minute. They didn't have internet connectivity. They found their way out onto the internet.
Yeah, I think that's what happened with the Anthropic one, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what happened. That's what I'm saying. That's the even scarier part. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. And in this case, Meta had farmed out testing to a company called Irregular, who realized that, oh dear, this has also happened to us. A company has been hacked. The name of the company was not released. Actually, it was more than one. I think it was 3 companies were affected. I mean, at least kind of with the Anthropic thing, they were like, hey, Hugging Face, come here, come hang out with us, kind of a thing. Nobody else seems to really want to say that, we were hacked by AI. It's not that, that could happen to a proverbial bishop, but it's just not good optics, You don't want to be the guy who says, hey, I got beaten up. I've learned something. It's like, yay, well done, I guess. I don't know. There has to be an easier way to learn that lesson. But anyway.
Who's going to be next? Do you think
going to be next?
Google will have an AI that goes rogue? Can you imagine a Google AI that did go rogue?
Well, we are talking about a super version of Copilot. And, Copilot and Gemini designed to do very similar things. If either one were to develop a mind of its own, of course, I don't mean that literally. Yeah. It wouldn't quite be good night for them, but it would make a lot of people look to China and go, hey, those guys are doing it right.
I always say that it's all going to end up like Terminator and Skynet and boom. Speaking of movies, I don't normally do this, but I'm going to hand out homework for you and I.
Oh.
For not next week, but for the week after, okay? Because it's summer and it's kind of quiet. We can do it. We have a huge list of science fiction movies that are going to be coming out between here and Christmas, or maybe some of them next year. All right. And our job between you and I is to go through them all and pick out the best 10. All right.
Okay.
I'll send you over the list later, but that's at a time. And I meant to say that to you, not necessarily during the podcast, but nevertheless. Movies is staying on that topic. BMW are making headlines this week for another, I would call it a massive technical cock up. All right. Movie related. The last time BMW cocked up like this was when they started charging a monthly subscription to activate heated seats.
No.
Oh yeah. Do you not remember that?
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, a couple of years ago. The car came with heated seats, but if you wanted to enact that, you had to pay an extra subscription. Now, if I'm not mistaken, with Tesla, I have no idea what the features is, but there's certain advanced features, if you want to put it that way, that are in the car. But if you want to enable them, you have to pay a subscription.
Wow.
It's like, what the hell? All right. This is going back to our Netflix conversation, all right, about paying a subscription for something, right? Because what BMW have done this week on the tech side of things is on their lovely dashboard, lovely screen, gives you all the information. You jump into your BMW, go, yeah, let's go somewhere and impress people. And you hit the button, the ignition, and the dash shines up with an for Spider-Man's movie.
Well, I mean, the worst things to have advertised. I'm okay. So is this if you have paid a subscription or if you're not paying
this has nothing to do with this. This is just, I bought the car. There's my dash. I'm heading off somewhere. And it's like, oh, just before you go, have you seen the new Spider-Man movie?
Oh, that's horrific.
Yes. Now, I don't think it's quite that bad, but there's a tie-in with BMW and the Spider-Man movie, and they're showing off the car or whatever, and Spider-Man.
Do you know what this reminds me of?
What?
Do you know what this reminds me of? Remember when iPods came with that U2 album downloaded on it, and there was nothing you could do? Yep. Yeah. It was shocking PR. And you remember Bono came out and he said, yeah, that was a terrible idea. In fairness to him, he owned up. He said, look, it was a bit of ego, a bit of megalomania. Didn't really do anything for anyone in the end.
No, true. Anyway, BMW are facing a serious backlash on social media about that. Last story for today, and it's a bad news story for Meta. Tell me all.
Do you know what? This is kind of, it's almost a follow-up, really, in things that we're looking at integrating into devices as a service that we should have, not even by default, that we should just have, right? So we are entering a stage in life where privacy is becoming something of a luxury. It's becoming something of a commodity. And we are seeing things from cinema chains to theatres to high-end restaurants in the UK banning Meta's smart glasses, banning them, right? I think, now opinions diverge on this. Personally, I am in favor of banning them because there's something inconvenient about holding up your phone and recording what's around you. It's very obvious what you're doing, right? And it gives somebody, an opportunity to duck out of the way or do something discreet, so as to not have their privacy violated, and it's something we're used to seeing. Somebody's walking around with a selfie stick chatting away or whatever, or somebody's holding their phone up. You're at least aware they're using a device, right? With Meta's smart glasses, it's just a light, a discrete little light, and you were getting things like people just don't know they're being recorded. And it makes people tense and it makes people uncomfortable. Yeah. So if you go somewhere where where a big chunk of the experience is sit down, relax, be entertained, and you can't relax, that's a big problem. That's the sort of thing that makes people go, I'll wait for streaming. Thanks very much. I don't want to be recorded by some pleb in the cinema. That's where we are. So, but we're seeing restaurant owners who are almost treating it like a premium feature. It's like, okay, you come into our restaurant, no smart glasses. Sorry, you probably don't need them for prescription purposes. And we want our customers to be comfortable. No smart glasses for you. But, on the other side of the spectrum, there are those who I am sure saw an opportunity to have their wonderfully prepared food posted to somebody's Instagram within seconds of it arriving on the table. And going.
And even, I think a lot of people kind of go, oh, what are you doing that for? But they do it. And as you say, if they're doing it with a phone, it's kind of obvious. All right. But with the glasses, then it's not obvious. Do you know what it kind of harks back to? It's a little bit like when you're flying and they're talking about bringing in the ability to use phones on airplanes. And everybody is kind of like, if they're bringing in Wi-Fi, Starlink, yada, yada, whatever, I can just do my thing and I can watch my movies, I can listen to my music, or I can send text messages and whatever. But I think almost universally, most reasonable people in the world are drawing the line unconsciously at no phone calls. No phone calls on the plane.
Well, it's part of the etiquette. I mean, from if as soon as you get into the whatchamacallit, what do you call it?
Etiquette.
As soon as you get on the steps, that's it. No phone calls. You're pretty much on the plane.
Yeah.
I mean, I once had the misfortune of being sat behind a woman who did indeed carry on a full phone conversation, both before takeoff and halfway through the journey. Unfortunately, I did not speak her language, so I couldn't
tap her on the shoulder.
Yeah. So, sorry, could you speak up a little louder? I need closure on this anecdote,
Let me ramp up with just two things I saw on Reddit last night. It was Ryanair, and Ryanair just put it. I'm sure they just goad people. And Ryanair, or was it on Facebook, or I can't remember where it was. But anyway, Ryanair just put up a thing and said, "Are you adults enough to go without Wi-Fi for 3 hours?" All right.
Oh.
And the first one was like, "I am. Are you adult enough to supply adult-sized seats?" And then the next comment was, "I know, be fair, at least the window's open."
Oh.
That was brilliant. Listen, there we go. That's the news for this week. Niall, as always, thank you.
Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland.
The more we talk about AI, the more we realize how hard it's going to be to actually regulate it. Now that the EU AI Act has passed into law in Ireland, websites and others should be telling us if content is generated by AI or by a human. But how is this going to work in practice? Ashley Casovan is Managing Director for AI Governance at IAPP. She had a chat with Niall Kitson about the challenge of clarity in AI.
Ashley, we're at the stage now, we're seeing the AI Act getting transposed into law across Europe. Not quite what we had expected, not quite everything that was on people's wish lists, which I suppose is kind of fair to expect with such a broad sweeping piece of legislation. And we're getting to Article 50, which, for policy wonks sounds absolutely fine and it's all very interesting. But for the rest of the universe, what's important about Article 50?
There are a few people, as my friends and family tell me, your niche group of people that are following these types of things. So for the non-niche crowd of people, Article 50 has been one of the most important requirements in the AI Act, and then was raised again in the Omnibus with the now additional guidance that we've seen drafts of starting in December 2026. And 2025, yeah, like years. Anyway, apologies. That we've seen starting in December 2025. And now with the third and final draft with feedback via public consultation process. And so really what these guidelines do is they identify the appropriate practices for transparency and labeling when AI systems are generating content. And so whether that's text, whether that's image or video, deep fakes, all of that is described around what's appropriate use in Article 50 and then the subsequent guidelines.
For once, it almost sounds like the legislation was kind of prescient, actually, because I would have considered sort of generative AI to be just one corner of what AI is capable of. I mean, at the time we were looking at things like, data sovereignty being a big problem, also what large language models are being used and who by and who they're being developed by as well. So to see Gen AI under the microscope like this it's pretty heartening, but the problems they still exist to a certain extent. I mean, are we still looking at issues of, well, that's fine that these protections are here, but if a service is based in the US or if the service is based in China, what actual protections are we going to be afforded here?
Yeah, I mean, maybe just to dig into the point of it being prescient, I think that one could argue that knowing whether or not something is AI is something that has been at the heart of some of these user trust issues for a very long time. And so I think that if you even go back to first principles and some of the early work that we did in the government of Canada, for example, transparency or explainability has always been at the heart of what people are hoping to achieve from these systems. And so I think that when the EU AI Act, as we know it now, was updated to incorporate generative AI because it was updated as ChatGPT was just coming out. I do think that this concept of knowing if you are talking to an AI system, or even before there was this bigger concept of content being produced from it, has always been one of the key principles of how to appropriately manage and govern AI systems. I think the fact that they were able to then apply that concept as soon as they saw these capabilities of generative AI systems was definitely the right thing to do. So I say that as in, I think that this becomes one of the most important articles and requirements because it really does speak to some of the issues at the heart of this, or at the heart of the trust issues that people have with AI. So that said, I think then how it relates kind of to your sovereignty question is that the EU AI Act is a transnational law. And so I do anticipate that while we might not have a full Brussels effect, as people like to say, for all aspects of the AI Act, I do think that transparency guidance that is going to come out and then be tested in the EU will be something that other jurisdictions will take up. Again, not just because the rules are going to be transnational, and so therefore multinational AI companies are going to have to be thinking about that in their practices, independent of what jurisdiction they're operating in, but also because it could end up becoming a useful benchmark that's been tested, and there's technical infrastructure, there's process infrastructure that's built around that. And I think that these, again, and that's why I just wanted to kind of go back to the fact that transparency has been a big aspect of AI governance since the beginning concepts or discussions around AI governance, is because I think that it's not something that's super political or controversial. Everybody wants it. And so it becomes one of those things that can really be integrated into a more technical standard for demonstration of compliance.
And I think in the sort of the age of agentic AI, where people, if they ring a help desk, they want to know that they've gotten through to a person on the other end of the line instead of a bot, regardless of how sophisticated it may well be. And I suppose there is a tremendous level of comfort that you can get just by knowing that, okay, I've gotten through to the bot. I just need to say a few keywords, or, please get me to a manager or something like that. And then you will get through to a human. That, it at least gives you some sort of sense of control of, okay, I'm within the system, but here's how I navigate it in order to get what I want.
Yeah, I think that at the same time, if you're going to get an outcome that you are looking for via the bot, then some people are comfortable with it. I know that I'm comfortable with that in a way that I probably wasn't before. I still think that the disclosure of knowing that you're talking to a bot, so you know how to manage and navigate the conversation, as you're indicating, that you can kind of just say like, opt out, you need to talk to a human, or hopefully there's not a hierarchy of agents that you're just like talking to a smarter model. I hadn't thought about that. Like use our lowest level model for incoming traffic, and then we'll provide some of the more expensive models for they're dealing with it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll see this model hierarchy in bots. But anyway, that's not your question. The point is, I think that we are developing processes as humans to know how to navigate and interact with these types of systems when we know that exists. And if an opt-out option doesn't exist, then we can use our consumer power to try and require that. And so I think that having those options in a digital service chat like you're talking about is a really good example of where it's frustrating when you're caught in one of those and there is no human option or there's no way to get out of that conversation. So I think that it's a good example of if we get what we need and the task is completed via having a human do it or an AI system do it, then we're more comfortable with it. We just need to know that that's something that is what we're dealing with.
And I suppose it's actually a good space for businesses to get some feedback as to how well their chat implementations are doing. Because I know when I visit a website and a little chat box comes up, I'm immediately assuming that I'm going to be speaking with a bot. But very often that's actually not the case. It's somebody that's actually sitting there and work. And it's not the only thing that they do, but you are actually going to get through to a human fairly quickly. And it's probably also a really good source of feedback for companies that are replacing jobs with AI to actually discover sort of the things that people bring to the table that actually can't be replicated or improved upon by AI just yet. And perhaps even then, in so lending a little bit more stability to the jobs market once people know when they are engaging with an AI and when not. I suppose just to pivot our conversation a little bit onto generative AI and sort of the effects for good and ill on the creative space. We've seen one example being of Secret Invasion, I think, which was one of the Marvel shows a couple of years ago, used AI in its opening credits. And there was an awful lot of, heartbreak and consternation over it because the argument was that, that this was a job that was taken away from a human professional. Although the argument went that it's a show about people who aren't what they seem, who are kind of trying to play with the thematics of it. But we are seeing again where AI is coming in with a view of replacing people's jobs. So where do we sit on generative AI sort of in the arts and the creative sectors through Article 50?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that we don't have all of the answers yet for any of these specific use cases. Will it need to just be a disclosure at the beginning of a movie, like you said in the credits, or will it be something that kind of shows the watermark throughout the entire generated image of that clip? I hope not. That's probably not meeting the user expectations. And maybe just not to go back too far, but I think, again, just those user expectations with the customer service example that you provided, if it's doing something that is not only, like I said, getting the answer, but it's happening in a faster way than you would get from a human interaction, like needing to wait on the phone for 3 hours, then I think we're comfortable with that because our overall user experience has been heightened or improved. And so to then use that analogy with the movie, if we then have a kind of like AI generated watermark over our really beautiful 5K image that we're going to a movie theater on, like that's not, I think, the intent of the law. That said, I think there are implications, like you're saying, whether they're workforce related, whether they are related to creativity and kind of direction. I think people knowing that some aspect or having that disclosure that some aspect of their entertainment has been generated. And if they're really against that, then they have other options. They don't need to consume that entertainment. But I do think there's a fundamental difference between services and entertainment by choice, and obviously not as it relates to the workforce, but just thinking about where you might have options to not view something if it has generated content and that's not what you choose to want to support versus a service that you need to have access to because there's only one bank in your region, or like you've been using that for a long time, or 3 telephone companies and they all have AI automated services. And so I think that my understanding, and I cannot speak on behalf of any government here, but when I read the article and the guidance, is that it's really for people that are getting access to services in a generated way where there's less choice.
One aspect of Article 50 I think is pretty interesting is in the area of deepfakes, because we've seen sort of the discussion center around things like image rights and copyright and this sort of thing. The semi-dystopian view on it is that people will be selling their image likenesses and appearing in films. I know actors like Matthew McConaughey and Michael Caine have been sort of to the forefront on this. However, for yourself, myself, and regular people out there, it can be fairly easy to have our images taken and misused. It's interesting to me that Article 50 is very interested in this, as opposed to traditional copyright legislation. So how will that actually work?
I think that is very much to be determined. I don't know how that will be enforced. I think this raises one of the most significant challenges, which is enforcement, and how that's going to vary across the different member states that are enforcing this, and also the regulatory oversight that was chosen in each of those individual member states. So I think that we're going to start to see some of these test cases come before Article 50 and see what this mix is between a reading or interpretation of the law in each jurisdiction and also consumer tolerance around it. I mean, I think, sure, some of the actors that you're mentioning have made maybe a decision that this is inevitable and therefore they're going to take steps to protect themselves. I know other actors are not that excited about it, and they're trying to find other ways to protect the ability to use those images in a legal way. But we also just saw that OpenAI stopped producing Sora because some of these discussions were raised during that. And so I think, again, market demand will also help to understand how some of these likeness generations are going to be managed appropriately. But you're right. Somebody could take a clip of this discussion that we're having and produce something else, and there's only going to be legal ways currently to be able to ask for that to be taken down and say that's a violation of that person's likeness.
So lastly, I mean, these are ongoing processes. I mean, even with sort of the AI Act and GDPR, we are going through this sort of omnibus phase. So it's sort of, 10 years on, how well is this model actually working for us? When it comes down to enforcement, Ireland in particular has taken a lot of flack for being slow to move. When it comes to the AI Act, is this going to be centrally organized through Europe? Or again, are we going to see that divestment to host countries?
Divestment to host countries. Yeah, that's we've seen how enforcement of some AI systems will stay with the EU AI Act, will stay with the EU Commission, but most of the requirements oversight will be done through each of the member states. And then even more complicated, there's been a lot of discussion across each of the member states of who is going to be the appropriate regulatory body for the AI Act. And the answer is typically not one, but several. So in Ireland, for example, there's 9 regulators that have been identified that are going to have oversight over different aspects of the AI Act. That said, they've also established a coordination function so that they can all work together. So again, I think that through some of the trial and evaluation of this. There'll be more clarity on what that enforcement will look like in each of the member nations. But that's what I was mentioning earlier, is that the distinction between having the Irish authorities understand or interpret Article 50, just as an example, might be different than in Spain or in France.
And that was Ashley Casovan from IAPP. For more on what they do, visit their website at iapp.org, and that link will be in the description area of this podcast for you.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's it for our show this week. Of course, we've got a whole ton more stories online for you that we didn't manage to squeeze into the podcast today, including what we've got.
Sure. We have Winamp making a welcome comeback. EVs overtake hybrids in popularity for the first time in Ireland. And we look at how publishers in the US are accepting the use of some AI.
You'll find those stories and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show for you. Please do remember to share our podcast, though, in the meantime, with a friend. If they're into tech and gadgets and what's going on, just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify or YouTube. Until next week, for myself, Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson, thanks for listening. Take care.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.